Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to Unbreakable Marriage
Woohoo!
with your host, Royal
Hello.
and Teresa Poor. Well, we are excited to come back to you tonight and talk about a new topic discussion, which will probably lead into a little bit of our last topic, which was communication. Well, not really. It was how do you stay strong when you're being tested? And oh my gosh, I think there was some testing going on this week for
Yes,
a
there
lot of
was.
people. Yeah. Well, hopefully, some of the stuff that we talked about last week maybe equipped you or gave you a new thought as we were all being tested. Well, what is unbreakable? Of course, there are things that happen in life that cause us to bend. And if we're careful and we stay diligent and we take disciplines in our lives, we can just come to the point where we're bending and getting stronger and not actually breaking. And that applies to our own personal lives, that applies to our relationships with each other and with our, children or anybody that you're in relationship with. And it applies to our business. So tonight, though, we're going to talk about some of the elements of an unbreakable marriage. And we hope you'll join us. Now we're drinking coffee to keep energy high.
Yes.
Hopefully,
That is for
though,
sure.
it won't stay high, after the talk show so we can get some sleep because we need sleep, right?
Yeah.
But we do want to jump right in. So, Royal, would you do the honor of picking our topic for tonight?
Oh, I thought we were talking about communication.
Well, apparently we didn't communicate very well because we're
Oh,
going to use
wow.
our
Okay, well, there you go.
communications
See?
jar
Gotta learn.
to decide what part we're going into. Okay.
So let's see
So
what
pick
we
a-
got
pick a-
going
pick a.
on here. All right.
All right. Let's see what this says. Hang on. But I know communication weaves into everything. So we will get into that.
And just like Teresa says too,
Uh-oh.
we have those moments where we do make a mistake, and how do we fix it?
Oh, I didn't say we make mistakes.
Well, I don't know. Some of us do.
No, we absolutely do. But this one's a fun one.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
we actually were going to do a talk show that plays with our fireplace business a while ago, and we were going to call it "Keeping It Lit,"
Yes,
Like-
that's right. I remember that.
staying hot. This question says how to keep the spark going.
Oh, how do you keep the spark going?
Stop asking the question.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, this one is spiky. And you know what's so exciting about this particular question this week? There's a special event coming up this week.
Oh, yes. What is it?
Stop
Just
it.
kidding. It's our anniversary, and we're going to have that on Friday, July 19th. How long have we been married? I mean, I can tell you. I just want to see if my wife...
23 years. So there's a lot of sparks and maybe fires and maybe some ashes that have happened during that 23-year period. But what a fun
Yes.
question. Good picking, babe.
Ashes, and then we clean it up, and we start over.
How do we keep the spark going? Well, I think for me, one of the ways to keep the spark going is to be curious and to be spontaneous and try to keep things light. Have you ever tried to start any kind of fire when you're like, so, I don't know, like so directed? I feel like,
Just putting some wood in there and then grabbing a lighter and try to light it. Does it work?
well, I mean, I guess it could if the wood has all the right conditions, right? We
It'll
are
take
talking.
a while.
I know it's like how many analogies can we come up with as fireplace people, right?
Yes.
But
For
I
sure.
do think, trying to stay spontaneous and making time for each other is a big piece of keeping that spark going. I was actually thinking about that earlier today, too, when I was at the gym. Taking care of yourself is a really important way to keep the spark going as well. Before I go into that whole tangent, Royal, what would you say about keeping, and this by the word spark, we're talking about, spark.
Spark like spark.
Not sparklers.
Oh, okay. Not sparklers. Just, the sparks. Yes. Oh, same thing. It's just really doing things for your spouse and really, finding those finding those things that really makes them happy. And sometimes that really helps out a lot.
Well,
Mhm.
I think so. I think, every morning you have a little ritual that you do for me, which is
Mhm.
really sweet.
Make the coffee every morning,
Yeah.
and I have that all ready for you. And I bring that to your bedroom,
Yeah.
right next to your nightstand.
Yeah.
Like that? Is that the spark?
I
And
mean,
you
it's
know what?
hot.
That's a good question too. You got to figure out what your spouse likes. And at that, it's amazing. Some of the things that I didn't even realize that I really liked. And, there's times that I come home and Teresa's outside at the door waiting for me. I didn't think that that was that big of a deal. But when I saw that, man, I was so happy. I could not believe how that really shot a big spark out.
Mm.
That was awesome.
Well, I think, we've all heard, or maybe you haven't, but we've heard of the 5 love languages. And, there's 5 that we're typically drawn towards. There is physical touch, there's acts of service, there is words of affirmation,
Mhm.
there's quality time, and obviously the last one must not be a big one for me, but there's one more. And maybe if somebody's watching tonight, they can put it in the comments. But
Yes, help us out.
yeah, help us out. Help us out. But I think, as we figure out what our partner needs, it's a lot easier to keep that spark going. For me, I obviously, I love acts of service. So when you bring the coffee to me in the morning, that is an act of service. It's doing something that's obviously not convenient. You're on your way out the door to get to work, but you stop what you're doing to make sure that I have my coffee exactly the way that I like it, too, by the way. And I think that that's awesome. And then yesterday, I think I told you probably about 14 times over the last couple of days, damn, you're sexy. Oops, sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But because you're doing something. And I don't mean that it's sexy that you're working, like, you look hot working, but doing your acts of service makes me attracted to you because that is one of my love languages.
Yes, and that's Teresa's, and mine is touch and holding me, and those are the feelings. The touch points are the ones that really makes a difference for me. And now that I know that, and I really know the difference whenever I don't get that, and same way whenever I don't take care of Teresa the way that she wants to be treated. So it's constantly learning, and things do change a little bit too, and you find ways to adapt and work that out, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, again, the 5 love languages are how we like to have love expressed to us. And then when that is shown, all of us want to be seen, valued, and heard in our
Yes.
relationships, in life, and at our jobs, anywhere. Those are things that we want. And when it's with our spouses, I believe that that's a big key in keeping the spark going because, if you're not getting fueled and fueling, it's just like,
You
any
just
fire you talked about, if you just have dry or not dry, but like just say like fresh cut wood that you just throw in a fire pit and you just try to get a match with it, it's not going to catch on fire. It takes seasoning and time and a little finessing to make that happen. And I think that that's part of, keeping the spark going in a relationship as well. Because 23 years is a long time. And let me tell you, there's a lot of temptations, there's a lot of
Mhm.
frustrations. There's, you've got 2 very opposite people. I mean,
Very,
how
very
easy would it be if both of us were acts of service people? Like that'd be
Yeah.
easy because I know what I like, and presumably that means that I know what you like because we like the same thing, and that's easy. But somehow, in God's infinite wisdom, He pairs people up that aren't exactly alike, so
Takes
we
a
become
lot.
a team, right? That can complement each other. But in that, there's differences, and we've got to, act selflessly and support one another in the way that they need to be valued and loved.
And I believe that helps us learn how other people are and how to treat others as well is a very good way of knowing and understanding. It's very difficult. I did not know how to appraise my beautiful wife and tell her how great she is. And I always thought that whenever I did the work, the acts of service, that was good enough. But there's always more that we have to really see on each other to help each other.
Well, I think that's another good point is that maybe acts of service is a primary love language, but there's
There's others.
secondary ones too. And all of us have emotional needs, and our emotional needs are right along with our love language needs. But being appreciated is a big piece. And I think for women and men, it doesn't matter what sex you are. When you do something, it's nice to be appreciated. And if if words of affirmation is something that's important to you and it's not given to you, in your relationship, you might seek it. There's healthy
Somewhere
ways
else.
to get those things and there's unhealthy ways to get them. And I think, social media is probably one of the hardest ways to even cultivate that within your relationship, because social media is always in your face and you're always looking for affirmation or confirmation and all of those things through outside sources that have nothing to do with the person that you're assigned to and connected with and in love with. And hopefully 23 years is like a drop in the hat compared to what we will have together, right?
Yeah. And social media, same thing. It's just it can get you to where you start getting jealous of other people, and you don't have to go that route. Just find ways to communicate and talk and say, this is what I really enjoy, and let's work it out, find a way to make it better.
And to be real and to be transparent, I think it's also important to say both of us are self-employed. We're both pretty driven people. We're both very active in a lot of things. We have to, with intention and on purpose, make time for keeping that spark going, because it's very easy. And we've had several times in our relationship where we just both have put our head to the ground and like focused on work or focused on, school or family, to where we didn't do our part to honor each other properly. And, and I think that there's seasons in relationships where that kind of ebbs and flows. And that the challenge, the important challenge, is to recognize that as soon as you can and then deal with it.
Yeah, definitely have grace for each other and really, really pay attention to that. Same thing. We get in our arguments, get angry, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're being a butthead.
Oh.
Sometimes we don't realize that.
And sometimes you need a little friend to
But
say,
I'm not the only. Don't just point at me.
I'm always nice.
Yes.
Ish.
Cricket.
We have this really cool soundboard over there that I wish we could push buttons on because it's super fun to have. But I think, again, sometimes, and that's where, one of the 5 pillars of an unbreakable marriage is communication. So, Royal, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's usually one of the hardest things for people to get right, especially because we process things so differently. One of the things that was a big challenge in our relationship for a long time was communication, because as you can tell, we are on different.
I am not a very good communicator, and I am learning very hard. I think a lot of people know that. Probably watching and seeing me too. I'm just like, hey, how are you? And that's it. And I don't stay in communication and talk to people very much. So I'm learning and practicing.
Well, part of this is practice.
That's right.
But I think, as we look at what communication is truly in its purest form, communication is the extension or the transfer of all of the thoughts and the beliefs and the feelings that we have internally and how we externally express them. And they're very different. Like yours and mine are different. And most of us we're all going to have different ways, because all of our beliefs and our thought patterns and it's all based on years and years and years of accumulation of events and different things. And so when something hits us, I was going to talk about something else here in a minute. But when something hits us, sometimes we don't realize why it hits us or why it bothers us. And so communication is like the bridge that gaps, what's going on inside of each of us individually and how we can bring it together. So I say all that to say a lot of times we get frustrated because we don't have communication, and you have to work on it. It's like an art of learning how to transfer all of these feelings, these emotions, these thoughts internally through an outward expression that also honors another person.
And there's different communications, isn't that?
Well, absolutely.
Correct? I mean,
as far as styles,
the facial communication, the look. I mean, there's all kinds of things that really makes it, sometimes if you're looking at them and you're talking to them and you have a mean face, but you're not being mean to them, but it makes it look like that.
Well, and sometimes again, you can't always, judge that, because sometimes if somebody has a mean look on their face, maybe they're processing information.
That's right.
Maybe their stomach is upset. Like, you have no idea what's exactly going on. Now, our face does tell a story, and so does our body language. So does the way that we lean in. How we mirror one another when we're talking to people. But one of the best gifts that we have is the ability to communicate. And so many times, because of not practicing it or not understanding, what all, again, is going on the inside, and learning how to exchange it verbally, in the same way, honoring the other person, because we don't know how to do it, we withhold communication from people. And that causes a whole series of feelings and burdens and all of those things. So, we talk about communication. It's so important. And, if anybody struggles with that, I'd love to chat with you one-on-one, or, send me a message, or let's type in the comments, because I think that is one of the biggest gifts that you can give. And one of the best ways to, again, keep relationships exciting and the sparks going. Because if you don't get that piece right, we'll read stuff in our spouse who, again, as I said earlier, is made 100% different than we are. And we're going to read things into that. And if we don't communicate and bridge that gap, a lot of times we'll be frustrated, we'll be upset, we'll be thinking they're not serving my needs. And, so many broken marriages, so many broken families could have been avoided if communication was something that was exercised more frequently.
And that's just being open, and you got to open up to each other. You really got to talk. It's very hard. Sometimes you get a defense mechanism that pops up really fast. And then if you've been married for a long period of time, or, it just happens, but you have to let it go through its cycle. I mean, we're always going to fight, have our arguments throughout our life, no matter what. But it's how do we handle it and how do we fix it? There's always those. That's how you get stronger.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Well, and sometimes.
Go ahead. Do it.
Pour my coffee.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. I might need it to take a big gulp here in a minute. No. I think as far as the spark that happens, keeping that lit, a lot of times the reasons that couples have a difficulty with intimacy in their relationship, and intimacy on any level, I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, but any kind of intimacy, is because we've experienced all of our own experiences through life. Some of them we share and we talk about, some of them we hide and we don't mention, for whatever reason. And, there are times that you have to communicate those things so that you and your partner can come together and be safe and on the same page with things. Because, you talked about trigger moments a minute ago. As somebody who has struggled with sexual abuse and trauma, in a younger age, I would get trigger moments that would make me want to say, hey, keep your sparky spark away from me. Right. And I kept that in for a long time, and I didn't communicate it. And so over here, Mr. Physical touch is his number one.
I know, and that's so crazy. So fight.
Yeah. Physical touch is number one for him. Yet I was struggling with, being comfortable with intimate situations.
Cuddling and all that.
I mean, just, don't touch me there.
Yeah,
Like, just, it could be my arm. Like, what's wrong with that? But, don't hold it didn't matter. It was just little things that could trigger. And so, if you find yourself in a situation where maybe you have trigger moments and you're struggling intimate wise, it's important that you work that out together as a couple, that you talk about it. And maybe you need help talking about it. So there's therapists out there that can help with that.
Just make sure that just make sure it's right, what they're saying too. Just sometimes you can kind of feel if they're not. They just try to I don't know.
Well, it needs to be a trusted
careful.
person.
Yeah.
And I think that's with anything. You need to have discretion with anybody that you talk to about things, because people can take information and manipulate it and
make it worse and hurt you.
And sometimes people create division in relationships on the outside, and like, you don't need anybody else to create it.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard enough to keep the spark going without anybody else's input. So yeah, Royal's right. You need to have discretion, and it needs to be the right person that you have that conversation with. But a lot of times, studies show that 1 in every 3 women have been, sexually through trauma, and 1 in every 9 men. And so chances are that if you do struggle with keeping spark going in your relationship, then maybe you need to have a conversation around past experiences and how you can heal that individually and together as well.
Yeah. Sometimes the talking is a healer. I've learned that. I've had my sides of things as well, not feeling like I'm enough. And so it makes it, I sometimes feel like that's the reason why she didn't want to be near me, all that kind of stuff. So same thing, communication is a real big key. And sometimes you have to talk, but in a calm way. If y'all start getting in an argument and getting very angry, it needs to stop.
Grab some coffee.
Think, and just try to relax and get back into it again, but in a calmer way, and how to say it the right way. Because there are times that I've said it the wrong way, and Teresa took it the wrong way.
He called me fat one time.
I did not call her fat. There was something that I said, but it was not fat, and she freaked out. She goes, "You call me fat?" I was like, "Whoa, no, I did not call you that. Where did you get that?"
Sometimes we hear things.
Yeah, we hear things that we thought that was said, and it was like, "No, that's not what I said at all." And that's so. So yeah, like I said, you got to make sure that it's clear. What are you saying to each other, and why? How do you make it to where they understand? And if you still didn't get it, ask the question again. That was something I had to keep doing, because Teresa would tell me something, and then
he hates it when I ask questions.
Oh yeah, she's an interrogator.
But guess what? Questions allow you to get to the intent. And, sometimes it may feel awkward asking a question like, well, what did you mean by that? And maybe if you say it like, well, what did you mean by that? That might sound a little harsh.
It's just trying to find that. They're asking that question again. What do you mean? What do you mean? Kind of like that. It's like, I told you what it means, but they still don't understand what you mean. So you're not saying it correctly.
Well, and
sometimes that's
one of my favorite stories is when Stephen Covey wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about, listen to understand, not to respond. And asking questions could go right along with that. Asking questions to get to the heart of the matter instead of asking questions, to interrogate. And if somebody has any insecurities around themselves and you ask a question, sometimes that heightens their insecurities a little bit too. And so we have to be mindful of that as well as we're asking questions. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just need to understand. Like I can't read your mind. I can't tell what's going on in there. I need you to help me understand so that I'm not using my own thought patterns, my own beliefs, my own limitations, my own insecurities, and making something out of something that didn't really happen. Like he didn't really call me fat. He probably said, go get the bat. And I heard him say, you fat cat or something. No, I'm just kidding. But, it was a lot of times our own insecurities in a relationship, and unfortunately our spouses are the ones that get like all of it.
Yeah, I never knew that I was being such a butthead, and
Well,
so you don't see that. And you're used to being around your spouse all the time, and then after that, you just don't think that you have to do anything else. You're done. That's the reason why you got the ring on your finger, and it's over.
Put a ring on it. Look, buddy boy.
It's not.
You need to upgrade that ring.
Yeah,
You keep talking like that. No, I like my upgraded ring.
Nice. Did you hear that?
23 years.
23
wow.
years.
Let's see. Okay, so I hope that helps with how to keep the spark going. But there was something that we were talking about the other day that I thought was interesting that I do want to go into because I don't know where our conversation is going to take us next week.
Oh, yes.
And this is totally off topic.
Uh-oh.
Completely off topic. But I feel like it needs to be talked about. And that is sometimes we say things just because it's like been a joke or a habit or something fun and you don't realize it, but before you know it, you said something totally insensitive.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And you're like, oh, well, darn, I probably shouldn't have said that. And then you feel foolish. And
you're like, how did my brain even come up with that? Why did I even say that?
So if that happens, I'll give you an example. What were we talking about the other day?
Help me, because there was a couple of things that we were talking about.
We do talk a lot. Well, we were talking about something and you're like, I can't believe I said that. What was it? I don't remember what it was.
What I said? Oh, I don't remember. I'm sorry. My mind has gone blank.
Well,
put me on the spot.
I do know there was a time that like in our early relationship, Royal and I had just been together for maybe a couple of years. I think we met in 99 and we were married in, 2001 because it's 23 years. But anyway, this is horrible. Like, I can't believe I'm actually going to admit to saying this, but
it wasn't meant. It wasn't meant that way. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like asking somebody, when's your baby due? And they're like, not pregnant.
Yes. It's like, oh,
well,
you gotta go.
I grew up in the era of yo mama jokes.
Yes, so did I.
Yeah. And Royal was being a punk to me one day, and he was like, who died and made you boss?
Who died and made you, yeah.
To which I answered.
Said yo mama.
It was so horrible. I could not believe I said that because it was like not even a year, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, it was about 2 years, I think. After
his mom passed away. And I'm like, oh my God.
And she just turned and her eyes got so big and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. And I knew she didn't mean that at all. It was just a joke that we do, and then after that, so it didn't hurt. I mean, I understood, but some people just take it and they get mad and they run with it. It's like, you got to really pay attention to some of it. And then, like I said, sometimes people say stuff that just like kids say the darndest things. Yeah. I think we're still adults, but we still act like kids sometimes. So we still say the darndest thing.
We do. So, if you find yourself backpedaling really fast in a situation like that, Royal talked about giving your spouse grace. Give yourself grace too. But I do think that filters are necessary and discretion is important. And sometimes just because a thought pops in your head doesn't mean you should say it.
Yes, I got to practice that very much. So.
Oh, it's because we were at SeaWorld.
What did I say?
You showed me that ride that was over there and you were like, that's where me and Brendan were walking. And he was holding my hand and I put his hand down and said, go find your real dad.
That was mean.
It was mean.
Then he walked away and then he turned back and looked at me and goes, Dad.
That was mean. That was me. Sometimes we're just stupid.
Didn't realize it. I was like, "Ah," I just said something mean. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, well. Well,
But it's mean but funny, but it's, I don't know. You got to be careful.
yeah. Well, communication is important. And as far as our question for the week, how to keep the spark going, I think that is a big deal. Your number one, I think it's important in life to just have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we get preoccupied and overly focused on just taking everything so serious. And there are certain things that we need to take serious. We
Yes.
obviously are stewards over our finances, over our health, over our, relationships, all of the things that God gives us. We're stewards over them. But sometimes you've got to remember to have fun, and keeping a spark going is something that's fun. A fire in your fireplace isn't necessary
Mm-hmm.
unless it's like Snowmageddon,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fun, and keeping a spark going in your marriage, it's maybe a little bit more necessary than a fireplace in Texas, but it's fun too. And when you remember to love and support and honor your spouse and understand their love language and do fun things with them and for them with intention and not just, oops, it's our anniversary. What do we want to do? That's how you keep the spark going. So anyway, we thank you so much.
Thank you. And just keep talking to each other and communicating, making sure that you don't, don't shut down. I think that's I did. I shut down, and not that I got it got pretty bad. So, you don't go there. Just find a way to figure it out. And why, what's the point? Why do you do it?
And shutting down wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to walk through, but because you did, and because we survived it, now we have another muscle of empathy to help others with as, they go through it. So nothing is lost unless we don't make something great out of it. And, I think everything that we go through in life, whether it's beautiful or challenging or heartbreaking, we have a chance to allow God to turn it into beauty and to serve others. And so anyway, I am not excited about the time that the shutdown happened, but I'm grateful that we were able to overcome it. And now we have the ability to help somebody else with it too.
Yes. That's just a muscle, another strength that helps us out.
Yeah. So, well, you guys, we look forward to seeing you next week on Monday night. Tune in. If you got some value out of this, like and share it, please. We want to help a lot of people, increase their sparks in their relationships and have and create an unbreakable marriage. So God bless you all. We will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.